Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is another installation of the Logseq Legends series, which I feel is a good name for it, so we'll continue with it. And in this video, I have hosted Josh Duffney on the channel. So Josh also has his own channel, which you can check out. I'll link below. Very cool. I enjoy his approach, just a very laid back sort of guy. And he's also got a great newsletter, which is called The Knowledge Worker, and maybe another newsletter. He's a prolific writer and yeah, plays a number of different roles in life. So I got him on because I was intrigued at how he manages his time in Logseq. So he is a fan of Cal Newport's time blocking system and also, has to manage a bunch of different tasks from different contexts. So I wanted to get him on and just look at different approaches and yeah, compare and contrast. Josh is an avid reader. He read Sonke Arens's book, How to Take Smart Notes, 5 times, I think. And he's already read Building a Second Brain. So we look a little bit at that. He also likes checking out new tools every now and again. So we're going to look at Dendron for a little bit. For me personally, I don't want the channel to only be Logseq, so it's nice to branch out little by little bit. We'll see how it goes though. So I hope there's some nuggets of insight in this video for you. There was one question on Twitter which someone asked, and unfortunately we'd already recorded the video, but I'll link to that post below. I hope you enjoy the video. I'm quite keen to delve into task management, time blocking, your writing workflow, all of those things. Because I think, again, it's one of those cases where we have very different approaches, and I use a lot of plugins. So I'm gonna maybe push a few buttons on why not try this? Why not try this? And then you can, because I think you've thought through these things a lot. So you'll be the perfect person to push the buttons with.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about all that. And in full disclaimer, I actually started tinkering around with Dendron recently.
I saw that.
I'm on a 30 Dendron experiment, but I haven't, completely ditched Logseq or got away. It's still my daily driver. But it's really interesting the different paradigms that all these tools have. It's really funny how, I watched the video from Tiago Forte about the archetypes, and I was like, he is 100% onto something with the archetypes, because each of these tools was built by one of those archetypes. And so they're very opinionated subtly about how you put knowledge into them. And so it just immediately opening up Dendron, this guy is an architect. Whoever designed this is an architect, and you can kind of feel that, and you can feel the guarding aspect with Logseq, but the flexibility is insane with Logseq. You can kind of make it whatever. The fluidness of Logseq is really the appeal, in my opinion. But yeah,
definitely keeping this part in. I'm going to keep this part in because that's cool stuff. Yeah, I saw that you were playing with Dendron, and I was like, no, don't join the dark side, because I think so many people don't stick with things very long. I know you've stuck with Logseq and first Obsidian before that, so it's not like you're just jumping around and jumping.
I try to avoid some cost, but I do try to stick at least 6 months. So I was with Obsidian for at least 6+ months, and I've been with Logseq about the same. And that's usually the time where I start to tinker with other things, because it's usually the part where it explodes to the point that I can't manage it. That happened several times with Obsidian. Every month it would explode too much where I couldn't manage it, and then I'd move to a new vault, and then I moved to Logseq. But Logseq, I was in one graph the entire time, which was a great experience and lifespan for my attention span. And so we'll see what Dendron does. I'll probably go back, but I did go back to Obsidian for a little bit, and then I went back to Logseq. And so I think that's a good 6 months has been a good trial run for me, but I'm locking it in for Dendron to a 30-day experiment, and then we'll see what happens from there. But,
well, yeah, what are you finding different about Dendron, versus Logseq? We'll get back to Logseq now, but I want to have these conversations out of my own interest rather than just oh, we're going to look at Logseq now.
Yeah, of course. No, fantastic. So the biggest difference is the hierarchy approach. It's hierarchy first, whereas you can use namespaces, but it's an after fact in Logseq. You can kind of use namespaces to create hierarchy, but it's really about the gardening or the connecting between things and then following those links along. And that allows a really fluid experience where, I just have my journal note and it's essentially a scratch pad. And then each journal note can be compiled into different collections and links. And so Dendron is different because everything is an intentional hierarchy first. And that's actually how I started to design Obsidian, the very first one, because I have a very systems approach to a lot of things because of my 10 years in technology. I've dealt and managed a lot of computer systems, and so those mental models transfer to a lot of what I do and live out in life. And so that's the big difference, where I wouldn't just write a note about something. I would open up a new one and find its namespace, which is a technology term for, or a tech term for where it lives in the code base. So is this, is this about Go, the language, or is this about writing, or is this about whatever? And then you go to that space and you create a note there, and then you can kind of sort things into their place based on the hierarchy. Where this tool is radically different, Dendron is from Obsidian and the other ones, is like when you approach it that way, your hierarchies constantly change when you're trying to do bottom-up note-taking.
Why don't you screen share? Can you screen share this? Something you want like you into?
Yeah, let's see here.
Yeah,
I just created a little.
This is off the cuff.
Oh, can you make me a host or give me sharing privileges?
I don't know why I have to do this every time. I mean, there's probably a setting that I can change, but yeah.
There we go. Let's see here. Is this the right one? Okay, I think this is the demo one that I just put together. So let me kind of remount this. So I've been reading The Second Brain, so this is mirrored to The Second Brain, as you can see. Well, if I can stop zooming spastically. Basically set up in this, the 4 areas, projects, the paramethod, project areas. I renamed resources to reference, that fit better for me, and then archive. But what I mean is, like, everything has its hierarchy. So if I were to put notes on my area front-end development, I would have to say, front-end development dot HTML, or maybe it would be, a better example might be one of the mental models of web development, which I can't think of one off the top of my head, but this is more like your area discipline, but it makes more sense in the reference. So if I were to go to, let's just do.
So just to slow you down, A is like area, dot is the namespace, and then front-end development is like the folder basically, but then.
Yes, exactly. So like in a software program, how I would browse around in a software program is I would have these namespaces, or like say I was writing code and I was using another library, I would pull in there for example, with Go, if I wanted to use something to manipulate strings, I would go to the strings package, and then there would be methods inside the string. So it would be strings dot convert to bit or convert to byte. Those would be methods or functions inside that package. And so you're transferring that mental model of namespaces and hierarchy to the way you manage your knowledge. And so if I do R for reference, and then I do programming, I can start to expand this, and it does tab completion. So here's programming, and then maybe I want to look up terms like separation of concerns is a term, or polymorphism would be a term. And so I could put that in terms. So this would be like, I'm going to spell polymorphism wrong. Morphism. Right, it's spelled wrong, but you get the point. So that would be the note for polymorphism. I can spell check it later. I'm a terrible speller. But anyway, that's how the namespace evolved. So if I wanted to look up something with like the Golang notes that I took, that I've been working on, so that would be programming languages, and then Go. So then you can see here the natural progression would be, JavaScript would be in here, maybe some other PowerShell scripting languages, like those would be in here. And then I can kind of browse that way. So that's the biggest difference. So I'm going to go to my Go note, and I'd be able to see all my Go information.
I've got like 500 different questions coming up. Like quickly, where's the server? Is it markdown files? Is it like
really markdown? And the benefit here is I live a lot of my life in VS Code, and it's just and that's an acronym for Visual Studio Code, which is an IDE, independent, or is it? Yeah. Development environment.
Integrated, yeah.
Integrated, there we go. Integrated development environment. So it kind of keeps it all in one tool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
The biggest thing is, so what I was saying with Obsidian before, when you start to approach things with this hierarchy first approach, it'll change. So an example is I have this resource of Visual Studio Code, because I just wanted to take some like shortcuts to teach myself. I wanted to have this reference. But as I learn more about Visual Studio Code, those would probably be a sub namespace underneath Visual Studio Code. And so there's this refactor hierarchy where I can rename this to, so here's the current one, R VS Code. I can rename it to R VS Code shortcuts. And it'll refactor the whole flow. So you can see there on the screen, here's what it currently is. Here's what it's going to look like.
Got the V though, so there was a spell. No, but I got you. That's really cool. I think you can do that with namespaces in Logseq though as well. Like where you can. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like with the.
You can rename them individually, but it won't. It'll break the chain. So what I've been doing is, this is a great opportunity for a plugin if anybody's got some spare time. But you can, if you open up the raw Markdown and Visual Studio Code and you do a search replace. So that's what I did with my Go namespace when I was using Logseq for capturing all my Golang notes. But that's a really powerful thing. And it's again, another paradigm or mental model from software engineering is the concept of refactoring. But so that's been really interesting. I'm really fascinated by the tool, but I still use Logseq as my daily driver. I think there's just so much power in the fluid nature of the journal note and the tagging.
How much is this a month?
This is free, completely free.
Oh, but then you said, so you're doing a 30-day trials, like you've limited yourself to 30 days, like you've time blocked.
Yes. Yeah, it's a time boxing tactic.
That's clever. Definitely want to get into that a bit more. But you were mentioning Tiago's book as well. Like, what are the takeaways, like the quick takeaways there? Because I feel like I haven't read it. I haven't got it on the to-read list or anything, but sell me on the book.
The biggest sell for me is I wish I would have read it before SmartNotes, because I feel like SmartNotes destroyed my knowledge management, because it put me like immediately into hoarder state for about 6 months. And where he kind of brings it out at a more practical level and brings awareness to the notes that you take should really have some tangible value, like you should be able to reuse them and not just start to collect and hoard, which is where SmartNotes kind of led me. So that's the biggest selling point for me, is that more practical approach to note taking, but then with the para method kind of giving you a digital place to think about different things. So your projects are in one area, your responsibilities are in another, your references are in another, and some of those transfer to SmartNotes. But then also the concept of an archive. And I love that he brought that up, because I read a Writer's Time by Kenneth Atchity a while ago when I was trying to learn how to do write nonfiction and how to be a productive writer. And he had this notion of, it's an old book written in the early 90s. And so he has this like diagram of his office where he's got like his different workstations, but he has this concept of like physical box that he puts all of the things related to a particular project. So when he's done with that, he can put it on the shelf and forget it. And when he needs it again, he can pull it off again. And that's kind of what the archive folder of the para method serves of. And it's really important to do that with large creative projects, because if you put multiple ones, like for example, I was using Ulysses for a long time, I'd have 2 manuscripts side by side and I like just immediately overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge and work that's in there. And so being able to put things in a box per se, digitally, or archived on a bookshelf is just it's a very powerful mental trick to help you from being overwhelmed. So that's the other point, is like the practical separation of your life digitally.
Yeah, that's super helpful, because I think I had a session with a guy, a consulting session, where he asked, like, do I delete notes or do I delete blocks? And like, I haven't been in the practice of deleting my notes. I've actually been going through it, and it's helped me build like the way I do things, because I'm like, what would I have done differently back then if I knew now if I knew then what I knew now, and then I can reshape it. So it's helpful for me to go back. But I do, like, I remember TFT Hacker had this whole thing about like deleting notes. I follow him on Twitter, and I was like, sure, this seems like a good practice to just clean the state in some senses, but to still have it in archive at least, or have it somewhere in archive. Because I think the one thing that I've found is that, like, if you have too much, particularly if you haven't got it in blocks, you've got it like in one block, and you haven't like been using hard line breaks, you've been using soft line breaks, things will show up in your search. You don't want to show up in your search. Like, you will, for instance, I've got this like, one of the files that I brought across was this like old journals file, and it's literally like thousands of lines of journals, and I haven't gone through it and like entered line breaks, and it often comes up in my search because like one of the words in that huge word wall of text is coming up. It's like really, really annoying. So now I'm trying to go through it and like delete things. But yeah, I still want to keep it in Logseq though, just because, you know, it's, and I'm keeping like Logseq mastery still in like my main database as well, because I want to be able to reference it quickly. Like I don't want to change databases or something. So yeah, it's a bit of a, but I can see what you, like that being like blasted with your own information almost when you go back and look at it.
It's kind of like a workspace. I mean, Logseq as a tool does a very great job at hiding that and keeping forward momentum with the journal notes. So like each day you kind of get that clean slate automatically. And so you can search backwards. So as a tool, like the archive method in Logseq would be completely different. You might have a tag that would mark something as archived as a status versus a folder in the para method or on like a file drive where you'd be dragging and moving to it. So that, yeah, but that's, I've never run into that particular issue because I always use hard breaks. You know, like most of my notes, like any one block probably doesn't exceed what you could fit on an index card a lot of times. And then, so if there's more knowledge that I need, I enter and tab in. So that way, when I search, I only have that top block.
So this one is like my like the very first import that I did into Logseq. And it was when I consolidated a whole bunch of other notes, and I could go into VS Code and Notepad++ and like enter the line breaks, like, you know, just by removing all blank lines and then adding a dash at the front of the line. But then I will lose the resolution that will enable me to process it. Because like, as I was telling you last week, I've been going through like my old notes and like really chewing on them, like from years ago, like from 7 years ago. And I don't want to sacrifice that experience of like being able to chew through them nicely just to reduce sometimes something showing up in search. So yeah, it's very like, yeah, very rewarding to like look back at how you were looking at things. When you were talking about para method and the how to take smart notes, I think the one thing which has become like really crucial part in my workflow and where I think about it is like building in feedback mechanisms, like in the sense that you're going back to notes. And this is something which I saw Gordon Brando also talking about in like this, he's the guy who is building Subconscious. He's got a really good newsletter. And he was talking about this concept of like our note-taking systems are black holes of information where things just go in. And he talks about like cybernetics principles of like feed forward, where it's just like in and you don't ever go look at it. And it's like when you need to go look at it, where is it? And the whole idea that he's trying to build is like feedback mechanisms. And the simplest one is just like seeing your notes in a reverse chronological order. But then also, you know, for me, the random note plugin has been a game changer. And this is where like I feel like we should get into Logseq because I know, actually, I don't know, whatever. Let me get into Logseq. But because I could just chat the whole time and maybe people like that. But I hope this is recording. Hold on, let me just make sure it's recording the right screen because I don't know. Let's record Logseq, yeah. Okay. This little random note plugin is such a win because it just, maybe there's even a shortcut, RN. Maybe there is. Yeah, there is. RN. And it just takes you to like random notes in your database. And that helps me with the cleanup process. Okay, so here, for instance, there's a book that I entered in a long time ago, and it was before I've cleaned things up. So I can go and clean that up and remove that and make that first block page properties and add the correct name and then add books here. Because this is now the demo database that I haven't gone through and like fully cleaned up. But then that would be like one of the first things, and then like RN again, just like, yeah, going through different things that I've entered at different points. This one is this is one of those ones that I will retrieve. And that's why I've got the left-hand sidebar here for me is like all jumping in points to retrieval. So to, and then if I collapse that here, my namespace hierarchy is to buy, develop, investigate, whatever. Yeah, in my personal database, like this is huge for me, like to be able to like go to read, to research. It's just like I add those tags in my daily journal so that I can like reliably get back to them. And I think that's like one of the principles of GTD, which is like just building lists. And I use these tags to aggregate my lists, basically. So like at the bottom here in the linked references are tons of books. And not here, obviously, because this is my demo database. But like, I think that's like an important thing that people would often want to like navigate back to the page to read and then put it in there. And that's the approach with hierarchy with Dendron, where I'm like, oh, I feel like already a little bit like uncomfortable.
Well, here's a little bit of a difference that I typically do. So I stole a lot of the ways that I use Logseq from bullet journaling. And so I would actually approach the reading list is I would have the name of the book. So I would just like run maybe a conversation, you recommended a book, I'd write the title, maybe I'd Google it and find the link and I'd throw it in my journal and then I'd tag it reading list. And then that creates a collection of reading lists. And then I would have just all the link references. That way it's built dynamically. That's typically how I build all the collections.
Yeah, so that's what I mean on my database. Is like all the link references are down here, and there's a massive list. But then what I want to do, this is like me trying to process it. Then I want to like build a hierarchy of like what I want to read when, like a prioritization, and I still haven't done it properly. That's something to do. And then like I'll look at ones which I want to read, ones that I could just get a summary for, because I think like we have this recency bias where the latest information is the most important information, and like you'll forget all the good books. I mean, there's one here, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, which I really want to read, and I haven't gotten back to it. But like I've also said to myself, I mustn't read any more books until I've read the ones that are currently on my bedstand, and then I can come back to Logseq. But yeah, I'm keen to hear how you manage like your task management a little bit more, like in Logseq, in other tools, because like your time, I went back and I watched your time blocking video, and I guess I find it admirable, but I can't imagine myself doing that. Like
most people don't.
Obviously, you've got like, I mean, we didn't even do a proper introduction, but you've got like a bunch of different responsibilities, like family, work, yeah. So you're really you're the real life test case. I think like in some ways I'm a little bit idealistic, or I can be seen as this idealistic because I'm just creating content theoretically for this. But I mean, I've also used it in professional applications, and I am still using it like different consulting and friends. But like I think you like really are putting it to its paces. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Yeah, let me. I'll kind of give a little brief introduction to like to preface the level of detail that I go to plan my day. So I have kind of three realms that I try to manage in my day. There's personal, which is being a husband and a father and just maintaining my health and all those good things, right? And then I have this creative outlet that I'm trying to mold and create, which for the last 17 months has been a single manuscript that I've been trying to figure out, like teach myself how to write, learn how to write better, try to figure out what form I want to have it, just learn all the tools of the trade. And then I have a full-time job. So I don't, I have a full-time job currently as a technical writer at Microsoft. Today's my last day of that. I'll be joining a cloud advocacy team and getting more back to the engineering that I did prior. But needless to say, I have these three realms and each of them has a particular number of hours per day. And so I use time blocking as a way to section out my day. And then time boxing as a way to confine each of those things. Because it's very easy once you get very excited and obsessed about something. For me, I found something that I enjoy that much, which is the writing that I'm doing in the morning. And if I don't constrain that, it'll start to bleed and take away time and energy from the other areas of my life that I need to maintain well. Like it'll kind of take over. And so I have to block it off so I do it, but then I also have to box it so it stays contained. And then for family and stuff like that, I have to just block out as much as I can. And then work, again, is the same thing. I have to contain it in a way. But even with inside work, I have to fracture that and say, here's my maker time. Here's where I'm creating value. And then there's inevitably time that you have to do busy work, or you have to collaborate, or you have to do shallow tasks. You have to do the needful, so to speak. And so that's where time blocking has kind of been the saving grace for me. And I'll show you what that looks like in Logseq. So there's Logseq. So can you see that all right?
Yeah.
So each note, it starts like this. I did have the template kind of pulling in for a little while, but I've just found it easier to do it day by day, because on the weekends I don't do time blocking, and some days it's just, connect my next thing. So then, like, the masterful thing with time blocking is it can be a task list of 3 things, or it can be an insanely hour by hour detailed thing, which is what I'll show to get the full picture. But a lot of my thinking here was changed by, or kind of molded by, Cal Newport's time block planner. So he has a physical planner that has about 30 pages in the front, maybe 20, about just explaining the method, right, and distilling it. And this is the method he uses to maintain his life. And he, admirably leaves work at 5 and never has to really worry about work after that, and has a really clear separation in his life. And so he's obviously a well published author. He's, I believe, a professor of computer science at university still, and then he does a family life. So very much kind of balancing those 3 worlds that I mentioned prior. So in Logseq, it really also kind of surfaces around the journal note. And I mentioned prior, a lot of this, the migrations that you're going to see came from a lot of the ideas in bullet journaling. But in time blocking, there's kind of 2 layers of resolution. There's the weekly. So I have this note called the weekly, or the week ahead. And this is where I kind of, like, at a week snapshot, here are all my tasks. And so I had a deadline to fill out a sprint report for work. I have a project. So this is a link to a project note. But then underneath that, I have all the tasks of that. And then you can see that I've marked them with days. And so I love this feature of Logseq where I can stage work for my future self. So on these tasks, the write rough draft, I think today's 14th. So today I should get the rough draft done, and I should put that into my time blocker. But I don't need to, like, plan every day out in advance. I actually plan every day right at 8 a.m. when I start work, and then I kind of move on my day. And I like not planning it the night before, because then I'm left free to not obsess about it when I'm with my family at night. So, like, I don't know I know that I have things to do tomorrow. They're staged, but they're not organized, and they could be everywhere. They could be in 3 days notes, this week note, last week's notes. But when it comes tomorrow, I'll be able to mold my day to see fit. So I have, deadlines, projects, and then tasks are just kind of like the miscellaneous things, like send a display picture and a bio for this podcast that I'll be on later. I need to order a lower dish rack. And these are legit things that
this podcast.
I have to do.
Oh,
not this one, a different one.
Oh, yeah, another podcast. Yeah. Whoa, okay, cool.
Another one. And then try out Reclaim.ai. It's a calendar app thing. And so this is where I just kind of stash my things I want to do this week that are just normal tasks. And then those have some place in the planner. You can get even more detailed and break it down. Like, if you want to do Monday and do like a pre-planned day type thing, you could put tasks under here, task 1, and then you could stage the work by just doing something like this, like the date picker. That's also something that I do. Yeah. But I find that this is more practical than like the day by day, because a lot of tasks will transfer for more than one day. Like the rough draft can actually take me to Friday, and so I'll just update the 14th to 15th. So that's the week, right? And so if we go back to the journal note, let's just say that I've staged all this work here for myself, and I've added some demo tasks for this purpose. What I'll do is I have this template. So I have a single template in Logseq, or note page, that's a proper term, page in Logseq called template, and it has all my templates that I create. So here's the time block. And then I have morning and afternoon. And I typically follow Paul Graham's maker versus manager time. So the maker time is blocked off. That's where I do my deep work. And the manager is where I do all my meetings and my shallow stuff. It doesn't always happen because, people can schedule
teamwork,
meetings, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So usually this is where it starts. Now, if I have a clear 4-hour block in the morning or several hour block, I won't go hour by hour and kind of schedule my tasks. What I'll do is I'll just drag in. I'll just cut this and move it over here. or, oops, sorry, shot me way back. Or I'll just kind of copy the reference link. So the other one is if I want that record, I could copy the reference. So that way it stays.
Yeah, there's a...
But
No, I've wanted to say this on the channel for so long, so I'm going to hide it in like this video, like way later on, just in case anyone's sensitive. But I had a maths teacher who used to say, there are many ways to kill a cat. And it was this terrible expression because there's so many different ways to do things. It's yeah. Anyways. Apologies to any sensitive cat people.
We're not condoning the killing of cats.
Not condoning, definitely not.
So here we go. Now, if I wanted to get more detailed, like say I really need to start to protect my time and people are starting to encroach on it, or I have a busy day, that's when I go a level higher and a little bit more extreme as I plan my morning. So I have this template called the morning grid.
Oh, wow.
And then I have this template called the afternoon grid. Now, if you watched my video in time block, you just saw like the hour by hour and people are like, oh, I could never do that. And I'm like, I don't do that every day. I just do that on days when people are trying to steal my time. Because then I can be a lot more creative and efficient with my time. So then I have another one called the afternoon grid.
Philosophical question. I mean, this is amazing, but like I sometimes feel that like systems like this almost prime you for output. Like you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna come to my desk and be like, da, 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 da. And like maybe it's just like my desire to just be like, ooh, footloose and fancy free. Which is maybe why, yeah, anyways, I'm not gonna go into that. But yeah, like, don't you feel sometimes this like leaves no space for spontaneity? I mean, that's not a straw man argument. I'm setting it up as like an extreme. Like obviously you're spontaneous, but your kids will come in running in and whatever. But
oh, for sure. I mean, it can be. I mean, I don't shoot them out. Like if I'm in my deep work session, they come in, I pause my session timer. I, handle whatever it is, or if they want to, sometimes my daughter will come in and she'll want to play, stuffed animals and stuff. I'm like, well, I can't do that right now. But then I get back to work. So you do have to manage the interruptions. The other thing is, like it does to a degree, but I do leave pockets in my day for that. Like the planning is a good aspect of that. And I really love this clip that was taken from a Joe Rogan experience with Robert Downey Jr. And it was titled "Don't Chase That Thing." But in there, he talked about like some advice that he would give is like, you need to know what your action is. So that way, when you come in the morning and you can play up the stuff you want, but if you can't hit your ass with both hands, or exactly what you're doing, like either way, you can just hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And I've like taken that kind of philosophy because I want to remove procrastination. I want to even remove the thought of what I'm going to do. I've already planned it. Like I've already determined this is important. To use a term from Jocko Willink in Extreme Ownership, I'm prioritizing and I'm executing. And this plan right here is the execute part. And so I want kind of all that other, like the time for thinking and spontaneity will come later. Right now, I really need to get this work done because I have a limited amount of time in each pocket to do what matters most to me. And this is what kind of holds me accountable for doing that. But it's.
I think that's admirable. And I can like imagine in your context, like specifically required. I think for me, I'm still like, a little bit. I don't know. I can see the value in that. Like you need to do the hard work in order to earn the freedom. I mean, discipline equals freedom. Jocko Willink 101. But like I sort of like about high level things. Like I would never go into this level of detail, but maybe I should start doing this, especially now. Like we have just got like open canvas.
Yeah. Well, here you would just time block your like thinking session, right? You have one general idea, or you want to research a particular topic. What you would do is you would just, it's like right here would be research, right? And you could even link this to a project note. So remember, I think I had that project note. I think it was a quick start. What was that, user story or something? Let's go back one. The week planner. Quick start, yeah. We'll just say that was the one. So now I have this, I'm zoomed in. So here 8 a.m., it's 8 a.m. I'm clicking into this. This is what I'm doing for the next 2 hours. I start a session timer, which is an app that is basically a digital Pomodoro. and I block out an hour or 2 hours, whatever this session is, and then it blocks me from Twitter and Outlook and all that stuff. So 8 a.m. comes, I start the timer, I click this, and now here I am, and this is my digital place to think, this project note. And all that brainstorming stuff that you're talking about, it happens right here. I'm just being diligent about saying, this is exactly what I'm going to do it. And I'm starting to cut off everything else that prevents me from doing it for this amount of time. And then I kind of resurface and I come out of it. But right now it would be heads down time for 2 hours from 8 to 10 to work on this particular item.
Sure. Yeah, this is definitely a big difference, because I think like I'm like the Nicholas Luhmann, like do whatever is easy sort of approach. That's like what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm like, well, I don't actually want to do that. Like I'm working, like I'm sitting here, I'm working hard. I'm not like on Twitter. Okay, I do sometimes do on Twitter, but like very like irregularly. Like it's more just like I have this high level picture that I'm sort of running towards, but I like the day is not set. I'm like I literally set like 2 goals for a day, like high level goals, like easy stuff, like recording this video is one, and then the meeting that I had, I need to record another video tonight, and then like those are the 2 goals. But yeah, I think you're gonna like the agenda plugin is amazing. Like you got it. I'm gonna like wring your arm here. Like some of the stuff that you're doing, because what you can do is you can transform this into a calendar then, and that for me is like a nice visual cue. Like
that's the one thing that I've been missing from Obsidian, because Obsidian, they had the day planner, and so I would probably love that plugin. Yeah.
Yeah. Carry on. Yeah. I'll find it.
That's pretty much it. So like, just to wrap it up, say I would take this, I would just maybe cut it or something and say, here's kind of the shallow work that's after lunch. I'm going to merge that pull request. The task from yesterday, I'm going to move. It's kind of a shallow batch. So the other thing, I do the batching principle. So I probably name this like batch. And then I'd have a number of tasks that probably wouldn't take me an hour that I would move to here. And then I would process them, like, maybe order this at 2 o'clock, send the display picture, what have you. Right. And so I'm just like setting all my intention for the day. So the rough draft, that's going to be, maybe after that particular block. So again, my mornings, my deep work session, where there are usually only like 1 or 2 items in there. That's what you're talking about. Like my WIG, my wildly important goals for the day. And then here's kind of like the shallow work. Like maybe this is a meeting. I have my meeting note, right? And so I can start to tag all those notes, or maybe it's just a meeting and I start to log underneath that what the conversation was that I had. And then I have my shutdown ritual, which is like tie up all the loose ends, stage the work for tomorrow, and then shut down. And I close everything on my computer. I mean, that's how I manage my day in Logseq. The agenda plugin would probably be great because I could see it better. I do like Logseq in this view because I can zoom into the morning. It's kind of hard to see all the stuff in the morning, but here's my morning block. And then I can just zoom into the afternoon block and stuff. And it keeps it it helps me with the levels of resolution that I'm looking at. So that's how I do time blocking and task management in Logseq.
I'm realizing that like part of me that's like sort of with this is because it's like, it's seeing a good way to do things and like feeling challenged by it. Like having a shutdown ritual, like it's something that like I've wanted to do for so long, and I struggle with it. Like I really struggle to shut down. It's like carry on going, and then but I mean,
and there's this like annoying checkbox that I have to click, and so it reminds me it's a cue.
I can disregard that. I can disregard that so easily. Like I had like my habit tracker was on my door with a piece of paper, and like I had my car license on, and sorry, I never used to fill in the habit tracker. I had my car license disc on the table for like a week, and I didn't take it down. Like I can walk past those cues. I can fool myself. But I do think like the high level things are like important for me. Like, and I do revisit to-dos, but like I use my tasks a little bit differently. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna share screen now.
Yeah.
We've only got 20 minutes. Oh my word, Jesus is flown.
To do a part 2. I haven't even talked about namespaces or.
Yeah, part 2 will have to be in September because I think I told you I'm going away like at the beginning of August, and I've got like a whole bunch of things next. I still got to do one with Alex again, part 2. Oh geez. Anyways, but I'm keen. That's a point of departure. Agenda plugin. Let me just go to journal. So GJ journal. Agenda plugin is this little guy here. Let me get my mouse. And the first thing you can see is it's actually got my my One Stuttering Mind calendar plugged in here. Now this isn't my only calendar. I've got another one which I also need to add in here, but I haven't figured that one out yet because it's using Zoho Mail. Like that's my professional one. But all of these are like things from my personal calendar, if I can call them that. And I've just turned it onto, well, when you're sharing your Google Calendar, you can make your things so that everyone can see it. So I would be able to see the actual names here, but I don't want that because it can show up in Google searches. But anyways, this is like my standard page. Whenever I click on the agenda plugin, I go into the calendar page, and you can choose like a daily view, a weekly view, a monthly view. It's really, really cool. And like the cool thing is that tasks get added here. If I go back to my journal page and I add a to-do, and I think I need to work. I actually did a little bit of work on the documentation, but I can't remember everything. But let's just check it. So 1800, make dinner. And then if I go to that agenda plugin, let's see what happens. There we go. It comes up there. And if I add a scheduled, so let me just say /scheduled. Add some content first. Okay, let's say make pudding. And I make it a schedule block. It's not going to show up yet. I'll show you why. I add time, and I add time for 1900. I think maybe it will show up. No, it won't. It's only when it's a to-do that will show up. But if I go back to my calendar and I say to-do, then I can go back to my agenda plugin, which is that little star thing there, and then it comes in there. And it's using the default, I've set a default time in the settings here. But there's like, if you have a to-do, you can also make a Pomodoro on that to-do. So like this to-do over here, I can right click that, and I can say agenda start Pomodoro timer. And then I can choose whatever time here, make dinner 40 minutes or whatever, and it starts a little timer. It doesn't lock everything out in the same way that it does for you, but that's a nifty little feature. But for me, like the really nice thing is like the calendar view. I mean, there's other features on the plugin, which is like project dashboards and like Gantt charts and all that. But I don't really use these dashboards like for my tasks. Like
It'd be really neat here. So the reason why I use Session is it tracks my hours of deep work. And so if I could see on this graph, like yesterday I got 2.5 hours, today I got 4, what's my average? Like all that data would be really neat. So maybe there's a opportunity for a session hook into this plugin.
Aren't you using Rise though? I read one of your articles on Rise.
I do use Rise. I use Rise to keep track of my behavior addictions, essentially is what I do. So like how many times did I check email? How many times did I do this? So I use it as like an investigative tool, and they are adding the session capabilities in there now, but they're very beta. And so I've been using Session as a way to essentially, so Cal Newport in the time block planner, he has this notion of daily metrics. And the most common one is the number of deep hours, but it could also be a checklist. Like your shutdown ritual is a daily metric of some kind, but it's really like, how am I measuring my productivity? And there's whole ways that you could do that. But the most consistent one for me is just like numbers of deep work time dedicated to a thing. So my target is 2 hours of deep work to write and 2 hours of deep work to code. And those are my kind of daily metrics. If I've hit that, that's my map, my minimum acceptable productivity level. And then I can just kind of feel good about the rest of the day. And so that's just a notion that I've kept through, like a mental model, a daily check that I want to get through is like Session tells me I got my 4 hours total. Like if it's noon, it's fine. I can check out, just shuffle paper, if I'm not feeling it. But that's kind of like the minimum that I should do.
Yeah, that's that data-driven approach is very cool. As I say, like I think I'm a little bit different. As I say, like just go with the feeling. But that's probably why I don't stop, because I haven't actually set like hard goals for myself every day to like achieve this and then close the laptop and be happy.
I've found that you have got to set a goal that you can easily achieve on any given day, but that you'll crush on your good days. Where people get really hung up with the metrics is like they have a good day and they're like, that's my new baseline. Like I'm just going to perform awesome every day, and that's not going to be how it works out.
Yeah.
You've got to find where's your minimum level, Like that's kind of your baseline. And then when you peak above that, then you can have some data that shows like, oh, today I was really on point. Like I had 4 hours in deep work and I still feel great. But like I found if after I approach 3 hours of deep, like really deep work, like I'm spent and I'm starting to borrow from tomorrow if I go past that. And so it's really more of a stopping rule or a cue for me to slow down and stop and to switch to something like a little bit more light, like to read or to, consume more information versus to create. I just think that there's a daily capacity that I have to create. And if I start to breach past that is where I start to get burnout.
Yeah. These are important things for me to revisit, I think. So this dashboard here, like it looks at all your to-dos and your tasks and like gives you like a percentage as well. So if you're not deleting it, like it's quite a nice like little analytical platform for you. As I said, I don't really use this one. I have another dashboard or another approach to dashboard, which is hello. What is that?
I think it's sorry. I forgot to close it.
Was dashboard. So dashboard person. These ones aren't the ones that I'm looking for. Who am I looking for? Oh no, I usually do it on the actual person's page. I've just been building this out for an example, but I can't remember who I actually did it for. Oh, here we go. And this isn't even the correct one. Dun dun dun. Is it Simba? No. There's a whole bunch of things here that I need to revisit. See, this is the one thing where you don't have that like the top-down hierarchy. Like if I haven't built it consistently across all the different examples. I did a live demo just now, which was, jeez, that was terrible because you find mistakes that you've made and you can't edit it out, and it's like, anyways. I'm trying to find where that dashboard, like I've got like one really good dashboard approach, which I need to cascade to the rest of the organization or the rest of these things. I probably did it in my personal database and I haven't transferred it over here. Anyways, but like the way that it's on a project page. Okay, so let me just like pause here. For each person, I will have like a query that catches all the tasks for that person, and then another query which catches all the inbox items. And the way that I think about inbox items is it's like discussion points, talking points. Like we don't have to discuss it. Like,
yeah.
What I think of as to-dos are things that I need to do. And then there's actually another one, again, scattered. I need to consolidate a little bit better, which is waiting, which is like, if I'm waiting for something for someone, then I use that waiting metric. But on the actual project page, I'm going to go to projects. Projects. Is it retail co? No, it's mining co. Projects. Yeah. So this dashboard approach here uses the Kanban plugin because I love Kanbans. And what I've done is I've just say TL and make this widescreen. And it's just again, just like queries, which is like looking at all the things which are later, to do, doing, and waiting. Now, I don't really use doing, but I use later and I use to do, and I use waiting. And what like the problem with like Logseq's task management is you can only use like one system, like later, now, done, to do, doing, done. So what I've done is I've built like different shortcuts to activate those, because you can still type it out. You can type capital letters later, and then it will show, and capital letters to do. But then this filters into this like Kanban for me. So later for me is like a long-term thing. To do is like priority. You need to do it. It's like almost like backlog, to do, doing, and then waiting, because waiting is like other people. So like from it, I think like I like this sort of zoomed out approach, whereas your system is like really good, but I don't know if I could like sustain it, like the daily thing.
Well, it's missing a level of, it's missing like a higher level project management. So I don't use Logseq for project management. Like those are usually in different tools, like Azure DevOps or Trello or Jira. Like those are because I need external collaboration at that level.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing with the time blocking is like a weekly and daily view of execution that I'm pulling in project work from, right? And so there's that separation. This is great though, because now you've got even project management inside of Logseq, where like I have external collaborators. And so typically those higher level tasks, like they need to know what I'm working on, but then at a weekly and daily level, they don't really care. And so that's the separation. And then periodically, like every week, I'll give a milestone update in the external system, but all my work is done in the internals of Logseq.
Yeah, I think this is going to be where Logseq is going to have challenges with like project management, like in a collaborative environment. Because like you say, like when I was working in a company as well, like I used to do everything in Logseq, and I used to transfer things to whatever tool we were using at any given stage, because people wanted to change tools. Eventually, I think we were using Airtable, which is my favorite. But yeah, and it was like always this balance of like, this is on my to-do list and I'm managing it here, but like giving external people that context as well, like all the things that you're doing. Like, I mean, you don't want everything to be visible to them, but I think like on these like shared knowledge bases, it's going to be interesting to see like how things.
The integration, PKM integration is going to be a really interesting thing to see unfold in the next couple of years, because you're going to need to integrate with different systems. You know, like you're going to have to plug in like a task comes into the column of, because a lot of times in like agile development, you have a swim lane for yourself or some kind of a tag. And so it would be easy with an API to be like, hey, anything take Josh is going to get sent to Logseq. You know, like how would that happen? Like what kind of like what would that look like? Would it become its own page? Would it become a task? Like, you know, so that integration point, I think there's a lot of opportunity in that.
A lot, yeah. Or just like an outline, like is it going to go to Josh's daily journal on that thing? I think the most important thing there is that like people are looking, this is a personal gripe for me, people are looking to automate things too early without understanding the processes. So it's like, like what you're saying there is like, it's a processing, it's like a workflow orchestration, like what needs to happen? Like let's map it first before we even try and like figure out like the different things. So it's like, yeah, removing the automation and like just like thinking about like an actual handover of work. Like if I had to go and hand this over to Josh, like this piece of paper, boom, goes to Josh. Like how do I do that digitally? And like Trello and all these things, you can even then you can do it like it's a card. Is it moving to Josh? Is Josh getting the email? Like is he actually taking that piece of work on and doing it?
What's funny is a lot of these things have been solved in software. Like with the API, you just have a standard like output format. You have a standard response, right? Like HTML and all the headers and stuff, they have standards. That's why all the websites can talk to each other, servers and clients. And so if you had that kind of like a format that, you know, X tool and this tool could communicate on, then you could transfer it. And that's what's great about Markdown is like, you really have kind of the rough structure. You just need an opinion about what that would look like coming across the wire.
Yeah. And I think that the opinion is the dangerous part, because like my opinion is going to be different to your opinion, and the team's opinion is going to be different. I don't know, I'm still sharing this. And the team's opinion is going to be different. Like I remember this, I don't know if you follow Cal Historian on Twitter, and he said something about like, when I send out the Notion database, it's beautiful, it's the best thing in the world. When I receive someone else's Notion database, it's horrible. It's like, how do I even use this thing? And like, I really think about that a lot. Like, how do you build like standards in even a team? Like, never mind trying to build a system. Like, and this is why like Logseq is amazing, because like, yeah, you get all the building blocks, but like you have to actually configure it to work for yourself.
Well, it's the difference there between, to use the web analogy again, the only thing that's standard in that is the request. The way that the website's built is completely up to the creator, but it's the request to the interaction between websites that's standardized.
Yeah, the API interface is a great analogy for that. Yeah, okay. You got 7 minutes left. I'm like, the writing thing is a big one for me, because you've obviously written a lot, and you are, yeah, I mean, you've written manuscripts and use different tools, and we're not going to get through it in 7 minutes, but like high level, I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
I can just like show some of my progression through it. So I don't do the long form writing in Logseq, but I do all my outlining and kind of like brainstorming. But what is it? Yeah, I was using Ulysses for a long time, and now I've been switching back to Scrivener. So I have this manuscript that I've been working on. I just rough draft, got done with the rough draft. And so I'm going through revision, but this is kind of what helped guide me. It was really interesting going through this process where I actually had to reverse engineer the writing process to be able to like figure out how to best use Logseq. So like finish the rough draft and then reverse that and say like what outline would have been useful to create this thing, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, what I do is I just create a page and I take it manuscripts. So if you look at this, these are all my other ideas for manuscripts. And like one thing that's difficult with the creative process is like, I don't know if these are all going to be independent ones or if there's chapters of one book or whatever. Like this is just how I'm organizing all that creative energy. So I take it with manuscripts and then I kind of give it a title, you know, just a pseudo title or a working title. And then notes to myself underneath, like revise the subtitle. Maybe I don't like that. But anyway, what I'll do is I keep it all in one note. So these are all just blocks, right? Embedded underneath that. So here's chapter 1. And this outline tactic comes from the scribe method. So there's a book on that I read. I didn't like all the book, but I really liked the way that they outlined the chapters. So because it wasn't like a really super detailed, might surprise you with the way I do time blocking. My writing doesn't follow the same retentiveness, I guess. But anyway, there's like a hook, the thesis, the key points. And so this is just a little note to myself, like each point should be 250 to 500 words. So that way you can kind of control the length to make sure that your rate of relevation is high enough.
Quick pause. Did you change your CSS to be the block quotes with the or did, because I thought you had to change your CSS to show
it's just standard.
Is that standard?
No, it's just standard. Yep. Standard markdown quote block. Yep.
And you didn't change any CSS?
Nope. That just comes down with standard. Standard HTML will render the greater than sign as a quote.
Because I entered some CSS to do it, but then I obviously don't even need the CSS. But okay, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And so yeah, underneath there's all the key points, and then like a story that I want to tell. Like I want to tell the story of the maker time, manager time from Program's essay, and then there's some quotes from the writer's time. And so this is the gap where these quotes are actually in Obsidian because I haven't been using the same system. But if we go down into, I think it was chapter 2, I did take my notes on time blocking, that book that I told you about by Cal Newport, in Logseq. And so this is a reference block. Let me go back in there. So that's actually a reference from my literature note on time blocking. And so that way I can just like piece together all these different sources of information. I think if I think it's in this one. Yeah, so here's all my notes. These are, again, block level references. So each of my notes is actually a block. It's not its own page. And to give you an idea, that looks like if I go here and just go to time blocker. So here are all my notes on this particular piece of writing, and I haven't filled out all that data yet.
And these are your own words?
Yes. Yep, using my own words. And then what I do is I go through and I tag them and I build up a namespace. So if we just look at the top level productivity, I've got time blocking, and then here's all my sub things under time blocking. And so I'm using these blocks now that make up this namespace to populate my outline of my manuscript as notes. So if I go back here, yeah, go ahead.
If you go back there, just sorry, to the one with the bullets, what's happening there? Like, is that, did you make that? Is it, it's like an MOC almost. But I've never seen
this
that
page
before.
or which one?
No, back one. This one.
Oh, this is actually a tip that I got from someone on YouTube, because I was showing my namespaces, and so there's this namespace query that, well, instead of like having to use hierarchy down here, it actually just like perfectly pulls it into a detailed list.
You learn something new every day. That's very cool.
Yeah, and now I can like browse, like here's my notes on daily pages, and here's my notes on meeting buffers, which I didn't take properly. Shutdown ritual. So now what I do is I just copy this block reference into my maker time manuscript outline. So maker's time, it's like I think the last chapter, which one is it? Yeah, having stopping points. So if I just come here, yeah, build an off switch, you know, so there's my shutdown ritual note that I can use as a writing prompt. So that's how I've been kind of managing
I think
outlines.
The interesting thing then is like how you convert those block references into like text, and there's so many different things there, like different ways of doing it. Like and you could just like collapse them in an outline and then like copy and paste the text somewhere else. Yeah.
I haven't really gotten to that because like I think there's room here. I have a note for myself to try log form writing in Logseq, because then I could like literally each block that I wrote could be referencing the block that the note came from. You know, like my footnotes would be essentially done for me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways to structure it. We've only got 1 minute left, and I know you got to jump off. So, geez, I just want to say thank you. There's like I feel like at the end there's like 5 different questions that I wanted to ask. And I was like, sorry. So I was going for it a little bit. Because one interesting thing I saw, you didn't use page properties. You used a block with like not page properties. Like you used a quote block. And I was wondering why you did that. But I mean, this is going to be a whole other conversation. But I think for the sake of cutting this one off, I really appreciate it. I think I'm keen to do a follow up in a few months' time when my life is a bit more clear. But yeah. Thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And like, yeah, I've learned a few new things there. So thanks, Josh.
Well, the pleasure's mine.
And yeah, man, like as I say, super inspirational from just like balancing all these things. Like, I mean, like maybe it's not for me to go and like try and be like you, but like I really commend you on your just discipline and rigor. It's really impressive. Yeah, cool, man. Good luck for your next meeting.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks for having me on. This is a blast.
Cool, man. Thanks. Yeah, it was good. Cheers. So as you can see, Josh and I have very different approaches, very different contexts in life. And I think this is one of the things which is nice about Logseq as a community and also just as a tool. It's very, very flexible. It's not opinionated. You can do things in any which way that you want, really. And it's about developing those systems for yourself. And just in terms of the community, there's such a vibrant community of people. I'm looking to do a few more of these videos over the coming months. I already have repeats with Josh and Alex that I need to do, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's nice just to be able to feature other people as well, you know, because I've learned a lot from other people's videos. So hope you enjoy that. Cheers.